I'm about community, learning, discussion, respect, integrity, truth, science, and discovery. Welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. Hello, and welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. I'm your friendly neighborhood ghost hunter, Justin Brown. And tonight we're presenting episode 44, I believe. Yes, and the topic is energy healing. A little bit of an exciting pull this week. If you're experiencing some lag, especially on YouTube, I'm sorry. But just bear with us. I do not know why we're having some lag issues. This is the first time I'm seeing lag issues on the stream, so bear with us. Thanks for tuning in, though. And hopefully we'll have a good show and a good discussion on the topic. But like I was saying, we had an interesting poll this week. Usually there's only about 30 to 50 people who vote. But we had a meeting last week, and the girls were saying, hey, I want energy healing to win, but it's not getting the votes. And I said, hey, you can campaign to get more votes. So that stirred the pot a little bit, didn't it, girls?
Absolutely. Especially, but Josh did start it.
Josh started it.
He started messaging. So that was his fault.
He was trying to get people to change their votes too, that already voted.
I know.
Poor Josh.
No, it
doesn't get his way again.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
So needless to say that you guys are excited that we're talking about energy healing tonight, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All
I
right.
plugged in my laptop, sorry.
He said I did not.
Well, if you're watching the first time, this is how this show goes. You're going to hear me specifically talk about my understanding of energy healing. I'll answer the question whether I believe it's legit or not, or if it's a thing. If you want to be shouted out during the show, just all you got to do is comment something and we'll shout you out here in a little bit. If you have a question, just ask away in the comments and we'll get to them periodically through the show. Missy and Jess will read them off and we'll answer them. I want to know your opinion, obviously. That's part of the show, and we just learn from each other. I try not to offend anyone. I try not to act like I know everything there is to know about every subject matter that we talk about. We all vote on what we want to talk about each week between two different topics, and we just do the best we can and try to have fun in the process. So here we go. Energy healing. Okay. So I think the first thing I want to do is talk about what energy means in the metaphysical sense. In the science sense, it pretty much means the ability to do work, whether through motion or the potential ability to do motion, like in a resting state, depending on what field it's in, it has a potential to do something. And there's radiation is a form of energy through photons and particle decay and so on and so forth. But energy in the metaphysical sense just simply means vibration. And since the quantum era began in the scientific community, the metaphysical and the quantum started bridging and intersecting things. And they started to understand that there are a lot of correlations and a lot of things that are similar with quantum field theory and metaphysics, specifically with vibration. Okay. And I don't want to bore you with a whole bunch of science knowledge on vibration and how that gives rise to certain types of particles and how that gives rise to mass. But I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Okay. Everything has energy because everything vibrates. Atoms, all the particles and the components within all these atoms and everything that makes up everything vibrate at a certain frequency. Depending on the frequency dictates what type of matter you're going to get. And each form of matter has usually 3 different states: solid, liquid, or gas. And that depends on how fast the particles that makes it up are moving. So the vibrations can also be put together in certain configurations to have different states of matter even. So there's a lot of things to that. But in a metaphysical sense, energy healing has a lot to do with consciousness and intent. The universe itself manifested out of consciousness. A lot of people like to say proto-consciousness. I believe it's just consciousness in its purest form. So if you hook up a human brain to an EEG, you can read waves, vibrations, frequencies. Okay? Consciousness has a frequency. So now that we know that energy healing has to do with consciousness, it has to do with energy, and energy vibrates, and consciousness vibrates itself, then you can start to see how our intentions, our conscious thoughts vibrate in different frequencies along with our, conscious states and physical states, how that can be applied to disease, to certain, situations that require healing or changing or balancing, unblocking, so on and so forth. So, yes.
You might want to check YouTube. It says an error has occurred. Please try again later.
Okay. Let me bring it up and see if I'm live or not. Sorry, guys. I was having a problem. I'm seeing it live on my end, so just go ahead and refresh the page, Jess.
Okay.
And if ever, please refresh the page and see if that helps. God, I hate these interruption. Sorry, guys. I'm having a little bit of issues, so if you're getting a buffering problem, just go ahead and refresh. Did that fix it for you, Jess?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, knowing that conscious thought is a vibration itself, we do know in science that certain vibrations of certain types of energies do heal disease. It fights cancer, and really importantly, it heals inflammation. And a lot of disease and things that can go wrong are caused by inflammation. And if you have any type of surface medical knowledge, that you'll know that's true. So if we can do something to help or fix inflammation in the body, it can cure a lot of things, and it can, alleviate a lot of things that may not be related to disease, but could cause disease later down the road. Stress, blockages and chakras, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the energy healing that we'll be talking about has a big root in Eastern belief. Chakras, crystals, things of that nature are Eastern. They're not Western. So we're going to bring in the old beliefs in. And what chakras are just conduits in the body that vibrate at certain frequencies and pretty much mediate certain aspects of our consciousness. We got the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, throat, third eye, and crown chakras. Okay, and they all do certain things. If you want to get into what those do, by all means, we will. But each one has to be balanced. Each one has to function correctly. And since we're talking about vibration and energy, we'll do some analogies really quick. In physics and quantum theory, there's this thing called string theory. And basically what that means is the basic forms and building blocks of all matter and energy are little vibrating strings. And depending on the frequency of the vibrating string will dictate what type of particle you get, what type of matter you get. So the same could be said about energy healing and consciousness and dimensions and spirituality. Depending on the vibration depends on the state in which you are trying to achieve, or what type of conscious level, spiritual level you're trying to achieve. So, with that being said, you have to go through the spectrum. A lot of people want to be happy all the time. They are suffering, they're alone, they're sad, they don't want to be that way. But that's just not how the world works, and that's not how healing and metaphysical works. How it works is you have to have shadow work in there too. And the shadow work involves dealing with your suffering, dealing with the flip opposite of joy, and the flip opposite of happiness, and knowing what it is, identifying with it, and flowing through the process, because any resistance to that process will cause issues in your chakras, issues in your life. So it's a spectrum, it vibrates. So if you take this even plane, energy is like values. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. Energy is like numbers, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4 up, and 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3, -4 down. And the frequency oscillates between the medium, okay? So to try to explain this in simple terms where you're all going to understand, our life flows in a frequency wave, okay? Everything does. So in order to be happy up here in the good, you got to flow down here to the bad so you can have something to compare it to. All consciousness is about comparison. You don't know how to define anything or give meaning to anything unless you can compare it to something else. So knowing that, everything else is important. Death, cancer, rape, Holocaust, everything bad is essential. Okay, so why are we running from it? Well, it's our human nature. It's the vibratory process in which we have to go through to learn and experience and to get the information that we need. So a lot of the Eastern cultures know this, and they try in their teaching, especially Buddha, they try to teach you to detach from suffering. It doesn't matter. Yourself doesn't matter. They try to eliminate the ego, and they try to say it's all about oneness and it's not about the self. Well, that's very hard to do, and a lot of people can't even get to that point. But once you start understanding what the self is and what the process of self is, then you can start healing and get to the oneness, which is a different level of spirituality, right? So back to energy healing. The practice is someone who has the ability to consciously manifest different frequencies and vibrations will call upon God, energy, or be a conduit of such into their body, through their crown chakra, through their hands. And you can either place your hands on the person, the chakra, or the place where there's a disease or some type of problem, or you can put your hands around it or over it. And all you're doing is allowing the energy to flow from God or the source, as a lot of metaphysicists call it, and allow the chakras or the energy to do its work. And that's all you do. The intent is to fix the problem. You don't necessarily have to imagine or to do anything super advanced to do energy work. So how it works is the body knows how to heal itself. It's constantly healing itself. It's constantly fighting off disease, its immune system, so on and so forth. That's why people with autoimmune diseases have a lot of problems, because their immune system is fighting itself. Hence inflammation of tissues and central nervous system, the central nervous system. So, there's a lot of things that can be healed through energy and a lot of things that can't. And we'll talk about those during the show. One thing energy healing is good at healing is cancer. Cells that don't turn off and keep growing, can be cured very good with energy. It's seen that certain types of radiation energy can heal and, kill cancer. And there is an interesting study that I found on YouTube. This guy did a study, and I will briefly bring it up. Let me bring up my history real quick. I can't remember his name. I'm crammed full of information all the time. But we'll bring up his name. Okay, his Dr. Bill Bingston. He did a test on mice, ejected it with mammary cancer, breast cancer, and the control group was inject them with cancer. the longest a rat would live would be 3 days to 27 days. No matter how many rats or mice you injected with cancer, they would die at least in 27 days and no longer. So he couldn't find any energy healers to come do his study, so he just used himself and some other colleagues in the lab. No belief in energy healing whatsoever. They put their hands over the box after they injected the mice with cancer. The cancer would grow and grow and grow. They would try to stop the cancer from growing, but they couldn't. But what happened was they continued the intent, putting their hands over the box, wanting the cancer not to grow. The cancer would become an ulcer, burst, and then implode on itself. And it would become healed. And this is published, okay? This is not myth. It's fact. Not only did all the mice, I think like a high percentage, like 90% of these mice were healed of the cancer, they could take the mice from the group and put them away and heal a certain portion of the group, and that other group would be healed. Okay, so it was non-local. What they found was they did not know if it was psychokinetic or if it was something emanating from them. All they could tell that intent was the only component that they could see was causing it, nothing else. So I thought that was really, really interesting. If you want to look up, if you want me to link these videos in the chat, girls, let me know if they're interested, and I will link those. But yeah, energy healing is, in my opinion, legit. It has limitations, but is very powerful. And a lot of science fields have problems with it because not only, for one, it fights against pharmaceuticals and all intuitive processes of medicine. Okay, they do deal with the placebo effect, which is an effect that the mind can somehow miraculously cure something or alleviate something if it thinks it's getting medicine. So that is a factor, but I believe it's much more than the surface definition of placebo effect. It has been proven in labs and proven a lot and is being very researched a lot that it can help in a lot of areas. And I have just now started to research it and apply it with Missy, for example, and she can give testimony to her experience with the energy healing so far. And we plan to do more. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. We'll go over to the Peanut Gallery. We'll do some shout outs and see what's going on with everyone. Would like to go first?
I can go first if you want.
Okay.
I have Bill Davis. I have Derek Schreiner. I have Sandy Griffith. I have Josh Bender, Chad Barr, Christy Brown, Heather Elliott. Let's see, the Paranormal Reporter, which is Bill, so he's watching on too. I had Val for a few minutes. I don't know if she went back to YouTube. I have Dan
Porter,
Becky Compton, Marlene Gump, and she said hi, Jess, and hi, Justin.
Hi, Mama.
I don't know how to say her last name, but her name is Heather, and this is her first time watching, so I just want to welcome her.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to butcher her name either, but thanks for joining us.
Daniel Everson, Billy Gerber, and Jamie Hunt.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
And Craig Williams.
I see Nelson popping in too.
And Nelson just popped in, yeah.
Awesome. All right, who's on YouTube?
Tori Ward is listening, just commented. Glenda, Spirit Stalker, Keith Edwards, Craig Williams, Val, and Joe chimed in, and then he left because he didn't want to talk about it. He was one of those ones that was trying to change people's votes.
I think energy healing is probably one of the most fascinating aspects about the paranormal that's starting to become understood and normal. What do you girls think? Is it that strange to understand? Does it seem that paranormal to you?
No.
See, I don't think so either.
No, I think people do things that are psychic every day and not know it or deny it. And people do energy healing every day and deny it or not know it too.
Well, it's just like if you stub your foot, what's your first reaction?
You
To
grab
touch
it.
it.
To grab it,
If you burn yourself,
right? You're gonna,
You
you
cut
know, I mean, you
yourself.
grab it, and
Exactly. So if your child comes in and says, "Oh, I bumped my foot on a tree stump," your first instinct is to touch it, lay your hands on it as well. And that is a intuitive form of healing that we're all born with. Of course, we do learn the behavior too. So, I want to recognize that too. But, you're not giving the child any, pharmaceutical. You are using energy healing to do that. What my mother used to do was blow on my boo-boos. She would blow on it. And sometimes she would sing or make tones. And what's also interesting about energy healing is the frequencies can be light energy and sound energy. And each chakra has a certain resonant frequency called I cannot remember the name of this stuff. It's not Fleggio, but it's similar to that. Help me out, girls. Do you remember the name of this? There's certain frequencies. Let me look at my history. I printed out a paper, but I'm not seeing where I put it. I think I put it in with all my stuff. But solfeggio frequencies. And we'll talk about those in a minute. The solfeggio frequencies are really interesting. They're certain musical notes, and they correspond with each chakra, and they vibrate. Everything's music. Okay, so you can relate everything to music, and that's why I believe music is so very healing. And I recommend a lot of people use music to heal with. And a lot of people do heal themselves in various ways with music. And there's also some ultrasonic medicines that I've actually had done to me. I was at physical therapy, and they're using an ultrasound emitter on my foot. And it just puts ultrasonic frequencies and energy into the tissues to help with inflammation. And they do that in your brain too to do certain things. Have you guys ever experienced any type of medicine like that before? No?
Yes.
Yeah, Missy has. Do we have any questions in the chat before we go down a rabbit hole here?
I don't have any.
Will energy healing cure vertigo?
It could, depending on what's causing the vertigo. There's certain things I'm not aware of all the things that cause vertigo, but if there's some kind of inner ear imbalance, there are certain energy things that they can do. Now I have seen ear ENTs. They'll hit a tuning fork and they'll place it on your forehead, and they'll try to use that to detect some kind of inner ear damage or inner ear problem. Okay. And they use frequency and vibration to diagnose certain things. And I don't know what the exact application of what type of energy healing would be required for vertigo, but I know that it has to have some type of effect. But that's a good question. Who asked that?
Well, they were just talking about vertigo, and I just took it upon myself to ask. Sandy and Daniel were talking about vertigo, and I just took it upon myself to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, and there's so many things to know and learn about to learn about this subject matter. But back to what I was saying, we use energy healing all the time when you're not actually trying to be all mystical and stuff. Can you girls think of any other examples that we use energy healing?
See, I think, when you have a friend or a family member, whomever, is having a bad day, just sending, it might sound strange, but you're sending good vibes, and to me, if they're sick or they have a doctor's appointment coming up or anything like that, I mean, just thinking, I feel that's something.
Yeah, I agree. What my mom did to me was very intuitive. Like she would sing to me a lot. And it wasn't just to go to sleep. Sometimes, one time I broke my arm and she sung to me. I remember telling her to shut the hell up, but she was trying it regardless. And, just sound frequencies itself definitely have, placebo-like effects and other types of effects. But I do want to get right into the experiment I had did with Missy. Missy, we did a Reiki session. It wasn't the greatest distraction-free Reiki session, and it wasn't the most ideal setup. But do you want to kind of reflect a little bit on how that your memory of that and how it impacted you and whether you think it worked or not? I'm going to switch over to your screen while you do this. Let me know if you can hear Missy when I do that. Go ahead, Missy.
At first, I remember being completely uncomfortable and completely like, what is he going to do? And then it was like, I just relaxed and it seemed to work. But at first, it just seemed weird to me.
Why?
I don't know.
Unnatural, not normal?
Yeah, not something that normally would happen. Like, I guess because it was my first Reiki session and,
That's what I was just going to say. It's kind of like the unknown, right, Missy?
Right.
I mean, that's what I would,
right.
what I would feel.
So did you have any like doubts that it would work, or did you feel like it was possible, or?
Well, I felt it was possible. And I knew you knew what you were doing, or you wouldn't have said, well, let's try this. So it was like I put 100% confidence in you and your ability to know what you were doing.
Okay, so what was the result you think of it?
I was a lot more relaxed for a while after. And I was a lot more like grounded, I guess you'd say.
Okay, what you said you had problems sleeping, and you had, self-love issues and confidence issues, and there might have been some other things that weren't as pronounced and, problematic, but, I think your issue has been self-confidence, and, not feeling like you're good enough, and feeling sad, a little bit of lonely. So, did you feel like that helped at all?
Maybe a little bit.
What helps you? What helps you through that? When you're not laying on someone's table and they're waving their hands over you, what helps you through that?
I just charge on. I don't. Some days I just don't pay attention to it, but it's not every day that I have a camera in my face either. So
what you're saying? So what you're saying is it's kind of hard to explain and convey with a camera in your face.
No, most days, my confidence level is like, okay, whatever. I look like shit. Whatever. I'm going to the grocery store, but I'm not gonna have a camera in my face when I go there.
Right. So what you're saying is you care more when you know there's people watching you, possibly judging you.
Yeah.
All right. That's fair. Jess, do you have anything to add or?
No, I agree with her. I mean, there's been times I go to the store. I mean, the same story, and that's just what I think is the negative energy that comes from people being, judging you. I think being judgmental is.
It lowers your vibration, right?
Absolutely. And I used to be, years ago, and I admit it, I used to be very judgmental. And now I feel like I don't judge at all. Don't ask Josh that question, but I feel that I have, I've changed the way of my thinking.
That's awesome. So when it comes, let's kind of hit on that topic a little bit. when it comes to energy vampires and people that are constantly trying to drag you down, do you think those people are more prone to wanting or benefiting from energy healing?
I bet
Probably
you.
so.
Yeah, I mean, if they would believe in it, but a lot of times when there's people like that, I don't think that they would even take that as a benefit.
Good question, Heather.
Go ahead.
How does an energy healer know if your chakras are blocked or imbalanced, or do they not know?
Yeah, that's not a one answer. Some of the shamans and energy healers that I see, it depends, but what I'm seeing is a lot of the Native American spirit or energy healers and a lot of the Eastern energy healers are starting to adopt the same things. Now, sometimes you'll see like a pendulum device or tool used. And some of them will say, okay, if it goes back and forth, that means the chakra's blocked. If it spins in a clockwise, if it spins clockwise, then it's not blocked. A lot of people that I see will lay the subject down and they will place their hands over the chakras and they can feel whether there's a blockage or imbalance there. And that's what I do. I can feel if there is an imbalance in the chakra in certain areas. Now, when I first started doing it, I was kind of confused on what the imbalance meant. Like when I was I placed my hands over Missy's sacral chakra, and I thought that she had mother issues because it was over her womb. But what I didn't know was she had digestive issues. And I was like, oh, okay, later on I had to, make sense of why there was an imbalance there. So it's not only spiritual, it is very physiological too. Everything is connected spiritually and physically. So they're all connected and they all have something to do with another. So, you can heal things physically and metaphysically as well. But yeah, that is a good question. Some people intuitively know, either through talking to you or just seeing an aura. But most of the time, they place their hands over the chakras to feel an imbalance. And the best way I can explain it is, okay, if you are tuning a piano and you're playing it and you can tell that it's out of tune, it's the same way with the chakra. If you are feeling the vibration from it and you can tell that it's not tuned properly, there's interference that is not correct. That's how I would explain it. But that's interesting though, because if you detect the imbalance, then what I would do is use solfeggio frequency corresponding with that chakra and do shadow work, which means that you're not concentrating on just the good vibes of that frequency. You need them to feel the full range. So each chakra has a corresponding thing involving with it. Like I think the root chakra, for example, has a lot to do with fear, okay, and grounding. So if you have a fear, you need to move past it. You don't need to restrict it or repress it. So you have to be very cognizant of your fear. So if I sense a imbalance in your root chakra, I want you to talk about your fear. I want you to confront your fear so you can change. If you try to constantly run from your fears or repress your fears, that's not going to allow you to heal. You'll be getting a lot of messed up dreams. It's going to start disturbing your sleep and it'll start, manifesting into your life in unfavorable ways. So that's almost like a learned behavior, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of dogmas out there. There's a lot of religions out there that feed off fear, and there's a lot of ideologies that feed off fear. And there's a lot of people like your parents and society at large who just impose fear onto you all the time and to lower your root chakra all the way down, in that level. So there is some shadow work, and the shadow aspect of yourself is something that is controversial in energy healing. I don't know if you guys want to get into that, but a lot of people like, okay, you have to enforce positive vibes all the time in order to heal. Well, not in my experience. You have to experience the full range of the spectrum, each level. What do you girls think about that? Missy, what do you think? What do you think about what I just said? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? What say you?
I agree. But most people aren't happy-go-lucky all the time. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, there's a spectrum.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes you're feeling it, sometimes you're not. But knowing that there is a spectrum and that you have to experience that spectrum to know yourself and to modulate and vibrate, that's what I feel is essential. When you're trying to resist the vibration in the full range of the spectrum, that's where I think you have problems. You repress things, you resist certain things.
Right.
What do you think, Jess? Are you on the same page, or are you thinking something different?
No, I agree, and I think what you were saying about the vibrations, and actually we've had this conversation before about myself. I think with how my vibration has changed since years ago, it does always seem there's always so many benefits from it. Just opening up as a person.
Right. So how do you feel like you've opened up? Like, can you elaborate more?
I mean, what we talked about before, I don't know. Watching a sappy story or a video on Facebook, and I would see people like, oh my gosh, it's, happy tears. And I'm like, what are they talking about? But now, like, I cry over the stupidest things. Like, it was earlier, I was watching a Carrie Underwood live. Well, it wasn't live; it was a concert, and she brought up a little girl, and she sang in the concert. I was crying. I'm like, "What is going on?" But I mean, but it all makes sense, and But before I used to, make fun of, okay, I was judgmental about those people, but I mean, and now I'm like, I get it. I get it now.
So yeah, crying about something is a release of energy. It's actually the manifestation of that flow of energy and the suffering and feeling that and learning something from that. Because when you're crying from it, you're learning something from that and getting useful information. And before, when you were resisting that, you felt a blockage, you felt an imbalance. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're more balanced now?
I do, and it was actually funny that you said that, because I was told that last night, and then actually you told me today. But I mean, I do, and sure, I might have days that I get upset, or I'm at home all day, and but you just kind of have to jumpstart it again. But I mean, I was very impressed of how fast, actually, I was able to turn it around.
Well, I think that being on this show and talking with me is all the, push in the right direction you needed. I think you intuitively knew all this stuff, but you resisted.
I mean, yeah, I know me. I'm sure not many people want to hear this stuff, but I think, me and you've had long conversations about stuff that has ate at me. And, and I've told you that you've helped me chisel so much of it off to realize, I mean, you can't hang on to that kind of stuff.
No. And I was in the same place.
Yeah. So I think that, it lowers your vibration because you're always so negative.
My biggest issue was not letting go of resentment and anger and hatred for somebody, especially the ones that you love, mother, father, sibling, spouse, child.
Right. Oh, absolutely. If my mom's still on here, she would agree 100% of how I used to be. But now it's like I'm knocking it down and go from there.
All right. Well, that's awesome. And we're going to continue to do that. I think on this show, we're going to talk about the individual chakras and what they mean, their frequency, just so people will know the information and they can go look somewhere. But the chakra,
I do have one question.
Okay,
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask it
Definitely.
real quick
Yes,
before we got
yes.
into that? I'm sorry. Heath wanted to know, could healing energy get rid of a haunting?
Yes.
And I have a question.
Yes.
And 2 shout outs. Holly just joined us and Vanessa is on.
Oh, right. Just in time. Holly and
Right?
Vanessa? Okay.
You're being graded now.
They know what's up.
And then Christy wanted to know, she said the one that is doing the healing, do they experience any symptoms? Does anything affect the healer from the healing process?
That's a good question. Empaths do, and a lot of empaths do healing. And a lot of people believe that empaths, their destiny is to take on other people's vibrations, allow them to lower their vibration, but then raise it back up. Because a lot of people are, they have the ability to feel other people's, emotions. But empaths actually take it upon themselves and obligate themselves to allow their vibrations to be lowered and then to raise their vibrations back up. Clairsentience, for example, I think is the correct term to feel. Psychically or metaphysically.
That would be me, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You are very clairvoyant, very clairsentient, and clairaudient as well. You hear. So you hear, see, and feel very well. Okay. Any other questions before I?
No, but I do want to say Sam Thomas jumped on and Marilyn Boyce, if I
All
said
right.
that
Well,
name
we
right.
might have to push this a little bit longer since people are chiming in late, which is okay. Okay. So.
Show to send you love.
Thank you, Vanessa. I will use the Force to guide people and to inform them on energy healing. Okay, let's do this. Okay. The very bottom, in the very lower groin area, is the root chakra. Okay. The frequency for the root chakra is 396 hertz. It deals with fear and guilt. And it deals with achieving your goals. So the shadow work dealing with fear and guilt is the opposite of it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a fear is anger. So not only is it essential to deal with fear, you also have to deal with anger as well. Guilt, the opposite of that, is innocence. So you want to oscillate when you're doing the shadow work and the energy work in this root chakra. You need to oscillate between your guilt and your innocence and identify and realize and understand that the spectrum between innocence and guilt is part of your journey. Okay. When we are born and we were small children, we were innocent. And then we learned to feel guilt for things that we have done. Moving on up, and the root chakra is also correlates with the color red. Okay, so you'll see a spectrum of the color, the Roy G or B, the spectrum of the rainbow. So the next one moving up is the sacral chakra, and the frequency for it is 417 hertz. It deals with change and separation. Okay, and it's about life change. The opposite end of the spectrum for change is enduring it instead of changing, and the opposite spectrum for the separating things is uniting things, keeping them together. So when you're dealing with this chakra, you definitely want to understand that change and endurance is what you want to oscillate when you're doing the shadow work and you're doing the energy work there. And when you're trying to separate and unite, that's the full spectrum there. The moving up in the middle area just below the breast is the solar plexus chakra. It resonates at 528 hertz, and it's about transformation and miracles. And it resonates with DNA repair. Okay, so DNA is constantly trying to repair itself, but there's things that want to break it down too. The opposite end of transformation is preservation. So that's a constant resistance there in a full range of the spectrum that we have to vibrate between. And the opposite of miracles is static things or stasis. So if something miraculously happens, the flip opposite would be nothing happening at all and staying the same. So when I'm explaining the shadow work and the opposites, the positive and negatives to everything, they're all important. They are all essential. You do not want to resist any of these things. They are all part of the journey and the vibration that you must go through. Up right above the breastbone is the heart chakra. It resonates at 639 hertz. It is about connection, communication, and cellular communication on the physical level. The flip opposite of connection is disconnection. So your friendships, your marriages, your relationships are all dealing with the heart chakra. The heart chakra is green, by the way, and the solar plexus is yellow. And the sacral is orange. I got to say the colors too. I'm sorry. So we're moving up the spectrum of light as well, and we're moving up the spectrum of sound along with it. Everything is frequency. So dealing with connection and disconnection is really important with the heart chakra, and a lot of people have imbalances with the heart chakra. Okay, it is good to feel self-love and to be alone. And it is also good to connect and rely on others. Both are truths. Both are important. Some spiritual teachings will tell you to self-love and to separate yourself from being connected and dependent on others. And some teachings will tell you that the exact opposite is true. They are both true. And in my spiritual teachings, if I'm a spiritual teacher at all, I would say that both are equally true and essential and important to do in the energy work. The throat chakra is so we go from green to blue, and it's at 741 hertz. It's about awakening, intuition, and cleansing, self-confidence. Okay, the opposite of awakening intuition is incompetence. Okay, so the throat chakra is another place that Missy I felt an imbalance. You know, there's communication issues, there's self-confidence issues. So her throat chakra definitely needs some work, and that's definitely something that I'm going to help her with this weekend. And I do believe that we can do something very, very cool this weekend. Moving on up, we have, I think it's indigo. The third eye chakra, 852 hertz, is the sound frequency. It's about spiritual order, identifying illusion, elevating awareness, and the opposite of that is chaos. So then we start getting into the grander picture, right? Science likes to talk about entropy a lot. The more complex the system, the more ability there is for disorder. And the flip opposite of that is spiritual order, okay? And we're getting up to the point where everything is about oneness and about the source. So once you start getting to that level, you start breaking away the illusions of yourself and getting to the source frequency. Finally, the violet, more purpley area is the crown chakra, 963 hertz. And it's about reconnecting with spirit, the light, as a lot of metaphysicists would say, and the non-vibrational energies of spirit. So here's where it can get controversial. This is where you connect with the source. This is where you connect with God. Whatever you want to call it, that is the conduit and the chakra you use. And the opposite of connecting with the spirit is not essential in this chakra. Okay, so if you go down to the root chakra, you're seeing that you're connected with earth. You're grounding with earth. The crown chakra, you're connecting with the light and the heavens and the source. So you see where your chakras and your physical and metaphysical body is stuck in between these two locations. So why is that? Is it, for your torture? Is it for your enjoyment? Yes and yes. So whatever meaning you want to derive from this is up to you. But if you would ask me, the meaning is we are learning and giving meaning and going on a journey that is not possible with oneness, with the source. The source is one-dimensional. It can vibrate and oscillate, but there's no variation dimensionally. And in the third dimension, which is the dimension we live in, spatially, can give rise to a lot of things. The source don't know and can't experience love. We can, but we have to experience hate in order to achieve it. Both are essential. So the duality of our existence is one of the defining aspects of our purpose here. So after all that's been said, what do you girls think about that crap?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
Christy said, but if the healer and the one being healed live in the same house, what good would it do? What good would it be to do the healing?
Okay, you're going to have to repeat that.
She said, but if the healer and the one being healed live in the same house, what good would it be to do the healing?
Okay, if someone had cancer, lived in the house with a cancer doctor, that would be good.
Do you want to know the expert answer?
What's the expert answer?
Vanessa said, Christy Brown, if they live in the same house, the healer has to be skilled enough to compartmentalize and release without leaving the energy in the location.
Well, that goes without saying.
There were several questions.
That's the plight of the empath. If you're empathic and you allow them to lower your vibration, you have to raise it back up. And a lot of couples deal with that all the time. They're constantly lowering and trying to elevate their vibrations all the time.
And Derek asked, so what happens when Missy gets mad and punches me in the throat chakra while poking out my third eye chakra?
Okay, you're not going to be saying a whole lot or seeing a whole lot.
Becky told him he was just fucked completely.
You still have other chakras. I don't know about completely is accurate.
But yeah, they were asking questions, and Vanessa and Holly were answering them, and I just let them go.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm going to have to go back. Can you read what they said?
Well, I know Sandy. I'm sorry, Missy. I just see what Sandy's. If you could get a healing long distance. Yes. And I know Holly does it, and Vanessa said yes, it can be done, but I know Holly does do that.
Healing is non-local. When I talked about earlier where they were using energy intent healing with cancer, the locality did not matter.
Becky also said that Reiki can be done from any distance, and it works on everything. You can do it on plants or animals or people.
There's some diseases that it don't work on. Parkinson's a disease it does not work on, and non-cancerous tumors it doesn't work on. So there has to be a need. And I think the reason it doesn't work on Parkinson's disease because Parkinson's disease deals with the decay of microtubules in the brain cells. And microtubules are what give rise to quantum fluctuations in our consciousness. So when you destroy our ability to vibrate and to be conscious, you can't heal that through energy healing. You would have to completely rely on something else. Am I getting too crazy with you guys yet?
No.
Okay.
No, I had somebody on YouTube asked if anyone else is buffering a lot.
That sucks that it's buffering a lot.
I mean, I haven't had a problem since I refreshed it. Okay. But I'm not listening. I don't know if it's sound, but because I'm not listening on YouTube.
It's probably the video.
Compton said the tree of life lines up with the chakras.
Yeah, it's all about in sacred geometry too. I was going to talk about that if we had time to. If the video is I can't see my keyboard. Buffering. Try refreshing the page. So sorry, yeah, if you're on YouTube and it's buffering, I am sorry. That sucks. So yeah, the tree of life has a lot to do with sacred geometry. And if you take like a drum head, the skin of a drum head, and put some salt on it, some sand, and you vibrate the drum head with certain frequencies, you'll see geometric patterns form. And that's has a lot to do with the sacred geometry. And there's a lot of math and values and quantizations of energy that manifest matter. And that is a whole nother show. But yes.
We'll vote for that one too, Justin.
We'll vote for that one too. You guys are going to explode my brain on this show. Like every time I do one of these shows, I feel like I got to know what I'm talking about. I can't just talk out my ass, which is, I feel like I have to sometimes, because I'm telling you what, this subject matter, the paranormal is one thing, but trying to take quantum field theory and quantum physics and marry it with energy healing will make your brain explode. And depending on how far you go, because everyone can understand that energy is just a vibration of a certain field, and depending on how much it vibrates or how it vibrates gives rise to what manifests. People can understand that. So if you're a positive person and you vibrate in that way, you're going to influence people positive, but you can't stay positive all the time. That's not what it's about. So you shouldn't resist when you do feel negative. You accept it. You resonate with it, and then you move past it and oscillate with, you just go with the flow. And, and just the message of energy healing is all about balance. It's not about offsetting it to the good or offsetting it to the bad all the time. Because you see those people all the time. You see the emo people with the black makeup and the piercings through their face. Then you see the opposite of that. Everyone's all happy and be like, there's nothing to worry about. God's got our back, and those type of people, and you want to stab them in the face with the piercings of the emo.
Gosh.
Tell me you don't feel the same way. It's all about being in the middle. It's being in the middle. Right, guys?
Balance.
So energy healing is real, if you ask me. It's real if you ask Missy. It's real if you ask Jess. And it does heal. And depending on how you see or what your understanding and idea of what energy healing is, it really doesn't matter what, if you feel like you just need positivity all the time. Everybody intuitively knows that that's just not going to happen. And to expect that is really stressful. So let that be a message to you all watching. Is there any other questions, comments?
Well, I have a question and a comment.
Okay.
Christy's comment is, cool, Justin, just don't make a mess. I have work in the morning.
Okay.
And my question is, how do you use crystals in energy healing?
Okay, good question. I did not add that, and that's important. So crystals are the molecules and the atoms and crystals are aligned in a repeating pattern. They're very repetitive and perfect. Okay? When you have that configuration, you can amplify energy and the frequencies that you're dealing with. So when you're healing, and if you're trying to transmit healing energy to yourself or to others, crystals will help that process. Okay? They don't protect you per se unless the intent is coming from you through the crystal to protect, or through the stone. Okay? The resonant properties themselves really don't, do the things that you think they do, in my opinion. They just amplify energy. So they can do good, but with that being said, they can also do bad and harm too, depending on the intent or negligent use of such things. So crystals are good. It's kind of like a magnifying glass. If you want to concentrate light and use its heat energy on this point to burn something, it's like a magnifying glass. You concentrate the energy onto a single point to achieve your desired effect. So I hope that's a good enough analogy for you, Missy.
That's good enough.
She's like, I expected a little bit more, but that's good enough.
Do you want more? Like what else are you want? Are you wanting more explanation, or?
I didn't say anything.
Well, there's different types of crystals that do different things. Their crystalline structures do matter. Selenite, for example, selenite is one of the ones that I like a lot. It doesn't require alignment or balance or cleansing or anything else. It has a lot to do with the crown chakra, and it can be also useful for the third eye chakra. And it's essential for the full spectrum of frequencies and vibrations that you're dealing with. Of course, there's stones and crystals that are essential for each chakra as well. Do you girls want to talk about that? Like,
Yeah.
like what a lot of the times the stones and the crystals correspond with the colors and the vibrations. Like, what do you use for each chakra? Have you read your book, Missy? Did your homework, guys, for the show?
No, that was your job. Bill said we just need an excuse to go out and buy some more crystals.
That's right. I do have a question. What is the going rate to see a Reiki healer? How do we find a legit one?
I've seen sessions anywhere from $20 to $200. And
I think Holly charges $50.
Does she charge? Is it $50 what Holly charges?
I think so. I'm not
I
really
know
sure.
I know she actually just posted up a price line.
some people do charge Tori. Tori is Hustlin' Junk 17, right?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure. Tori, some people do charge, and that's controversial and maybe not so controversial. The reason people charge is because if you want to do it properly, you have to have this kind of like dedicated room or dedicated space in your house or somewhere. You have to cleanse the area, cleanse yourself, have an appropriate place for someone to lie down, quiet and free of distraction. You have to take time out of their day. You have to take their energy. They have to lower their vibration for you, raise your vibration up, and do the work. So compensation should not be frowned upon. Some people
Hollies
don't ask for it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
Hollies can be done, a Shiraka cleansing and alignment can be done over the phone for $50.
Okay.
It's $60 for a private session.
There you go.
I looked it up.
Paranormal Report. I charge $300 just to film it. I don't charge for it. Maybe if I had requests every day by a bunch of people, I probably would, or just turn them away. Or I would make videos about like this and help them learn about how to raise their own vibrations and heal themselves. Because let's face it, guys, energy healing is all about allowing the person to heal themselves, allowing the energy to flow from the source into their energy to heal. Because all true energy healers will tell you that they're actually not doing anything themselves. They're just conduits. They're channels in which the source allows the energy to do the work. And where there's need, there's healing. Okay? There has to be a need. It's not a want, it's a need. Any other questions?
Sandy asked, how do you know if you get a long distance healing, how do you know they actually did it?
You will intuitively know and you will feel it. If they will tell you which chakras are out of balance, what your issues are, if it's metaphysical or physical, depending on the psychic or the energy healer. A lot of energy healers have to be psychic and have to be remote viewers if they're doing remote work to know what the hell is wrong with you to do the work in the first place. Lori Johnson, for example, can look at your name and tell you what's wrong with you probably better than some doctors. So look up Lori Johnson, pay her to do a reading. Sometimes she does free ones on Facebook live every once in a while. You might get lucky enough to get a quick reading from her. There's many others who can do the same thing. Vanessa can do it. Holly can do it. Thousands and thousands of people can do it. You could probably do it yourself. You can learn to do it. But you will know if they did it. It won't, trust me, you will know. There will be a change. Anything else?
Look up CB Walker Psychic Energy Healing on YouTube.
I see that you got your dog back. How's your dog been doing?
She's going nuts. She's been going nuts for like a half an hour.
$800 flushed down the drain. Energy healing didn't work on the doggy.
No, she was fine the first half hour, and then the second half hour, she just started going nuts.
Because you're ignoring her? All right, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. You girls have any final statements? Your topic 1. Do you have any closing statements for the viewers?
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you for all the votes.
All right. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course, I can sit here for hours and answer your questions and talk about the paranormal, specifically energy work. My closing statements would be, life is not all about trying to run from negative things that you are unfavorable. So accept, all the bad with the good. Okay. They are all essential, and that is part of the healing process. And I would like to thank you for joining me. Hopefully I did this topic justice. Hopefully I entertained you for the last hour. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I learned something from you all as well. I usually always do. If you're just now chiming in, you can watch this and post. It will post, so you can rewatch it. I love you all. Your support is very, very appreciated. If you're interested in the paranormal field research that the girls, and the rest of my paranormal group do, check us out at interfacedeath.net. The link is in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out Justin Brown Paranormal Research. It's the blog page that I broadcast this show in particular on Facebook. So you can check that out just to get my opinions on things. But please go check out Interface Death on Facebook if you want to see what we do as a group. You can check Interface Death out on Twitter to get all those updates. You can check us out on Instagram to see all those nice photos that we take. You can support us through patreon.com/support Interface Death. We'll elaborate on that in just a moment. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can check out our Interface Death YouTube channel at the link in the description. Without our Patreon support, this content would not be possible. People like Clay Borman, RJ Murphy, Scotty Fox, Casey Schreiner, Jessica Baez, Paranormal Reporter, Joe Vitale, Heather Elliott, General Rowe, Craig Williams, Cherry Capital, Shadow Seekers, and the Ghost Guild. Thank you very much for your support. If you would like to financially support this content and become producers of all of our videos and films and documentaries, check out the link in the description. Thank you very much for doing that. That's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for joining us once again. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Nelson Noss of the Ghost Guild joining us to talk about the legalities of paranormal research and doing events and all that stuff. So please check that out on Necromancer Live Show Facebook page, on the Interface Death YouTube channel at 8 p.m. And we will throw up another couple topics to vote on for next week. You guys have a good night. I will see you next time. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good.
Dead light, for those who aren't afraid to see
here.
What was that?
I heard it.
That was downstairs.
Are you down there? Not afraid. We know what it feels like to walk in the darkness.
Are you in this room over here? What the fuck, dude?
Whoa.
That's weird.
You didn't do anything, right?
No, it just turned.
Justin too close.
No.
No, he opened that door and it went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just run out of there?